Open up your Little Atheist books to 9 and equip 9. Okay, equip 9 says this. We've discussed all the other. What are the historical tests that scholars use to determine whether or not a historical document is authentic? What's one of them? Yes. Do we have early testimony? Do we have early testimony for the New Testament?
Yep.
What's another one? Eyewitness testimony. Do we have eyewitness testimony for the New Testament?
Yes.
Yes, we do. What's the third one? Do we have multiple independent eyewitness sources? In other words, they didn't collude. They wrote their own story. They didn't crib off of somebody else. Do we have that privilege? Yes. Trustworthy eyewitnesses. Were the eyewitnesses trustworthy? Do we have that? Give me an example of why it's trustworthy. Yes.
Because you don't fabricate a lie that doesn't bring you something.
Right. You only lie to get out of trouble, correct?
Or to gain something.
Or to gain something. Have you ever lied just to get in trouble? You have?
Oh no, that's
okay. Okay. Well,
it's another app.
We generally lie to get out of trouble, not to get into trouble, right? I'm not going to go up to Pop and say, hey, I just knocked off a liquor store down the street. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to make up a lie that gets me arrested. Right? Yeah.
I was also just going to add, like, they wouldn't put specific names and stuff in there if they weren't sure that, like, if that person was absolutely wrong.
Yeah, those details are either corroborating the truth or they'll trip you up. Again, when you're trying to get away with a story, you're not going to give whoever you're telling the story to the details because they can too easily, like let's say you said, let's make it, I said, well, I went out with Allison and all we did was, talk and that's all that happened. And, we were at Allison's house. All my parents were. I wasn't. And so, not even with Allison. But that's a real person. 19th grade. You lie to get out of trouble, not to get into trouble. If the truth is in your favor. What's the next one? We're on 5.
Corroborating
yes, and other writers. So do we have corroborating evidences that evidence that says the same thing? Like if I really was at Allison's house, then Allison's mother would have been the corroborating evidence that they needed to say, okay. Do we have corroborating evidence for archaeology and for other writers? Like that, yeah, we do. Writers outside of the New Testament. Next one is, do we have enemy attestation? Do we have enemies or at least non-Christians who are telling the same basic story as the Bible?
Yeah.
And what's the last one?
Contains events or details that are embarrassing.
Yes. Does the text contain events or details that are embarrassing to the authors? If you're trying to get people to believe you and follow Jesus, you're not going to make up bumbling and stumbling leaders, right? They're going to seem like superheroes. And that's true in many other religions. But we see all of these embarrassing details. The men are hiding, while the women are going. That would never happen. Especially since women weren't even allowed to testify in court. They would have, if they were making up a lie, they'd say, we did it, we brought them out, and not the women. Embarrassing things, Jesus calling Satan, denying him 3 times, and just their basic misunderstanding and bumbleheadedness, not understanding, or saying brash things. We see all kinds of details. Okay, so now we're going to do, I'm going to let's do engage 1 through 4. How would you refute the objection that the New Testament isn't reliable because history can't be known? Yes.
Ask the question like, why couldn't we know it? If you couldn't know it, then like, what's the point of why? How could you not know it?
Right, but they're saying that history in general can't.
Right, and I'm saying if somebody told me that, I would say, well, how could you not know it? Like, what makes? No, here. Why couldn't you not know it? If you couldn't know it, then what would the point be of like studying anything, knowing anything, or attempting to learn?
We couldn't know anything. That's
Exactly.
You're exactly right. We couldn't know anything that was true. If we didn't, it can't be known. Yeah.
You also can't claim something is untrue. If you claim it's untrue, then you're saying that you know what it is true.
Right, exactly. So we couldn't know anything at all. We kind of talked about that at the beginning of the year. It's against common sense. You know certain things for sure, right? You know when you were born. You know where you were born. You know all kinds of things about your history and other history. So, in order to say in order to say that we can't know history, we must know something about history. So it's self-defeating, right? Because we know something about history. It can't be. So it's self-defeating. And then there are things that can't be known. The origin of the first light cannot be known either. Like these same people believe that the origin of the first life was some one cell. But that can't be known. So how can they know that? They're looking at actual historical facts, and so you certainly know something that nobody ever saw. Yes.
Oh, that's just what I was gonna say. Is like they claim the stuff about eyewitnesses and specific dates can be known, and stuff with specific dates and eyewitnesses. Or like they say that they know exactly when something was because they carved and dated it. And then when someone says, "Oh, well, Jesus lived for 33 years," they're like, "No, it didn't. Couldn't be possible."
Okay, how would you respond to the objection that the New Testament isn't reliable because the New Testament documents contain miracles? And that's where we also lean on chapter 8.
That exists.
Possible.
Yeah, it should be expected. If there is a God that is all powerful and personal, then we should expect it. Not all the time, but we shouldn't be surprised. Okay, number 3. How would you refute the objection that the New Testament isn't reliable because the New Testament writers were biased? They were biased.
They had no earthly motive to deny the resurrection. Like what you said, they were going to get in trouble. So why would they do it?
You don't make up stories.
And also, something that's so precious to you, you're not going to try and dismantle its reputation or its and that they would keep it.
Yeah, they had every reason to want an accurate.
I don't know if this was in the book or not, but like, if they're claiming that the disciples were biased, then they themselves would also be biased, and so it would just be like a circle. Like, there's no point to claim that somebody else is biased if you're biased.
Yeah,
Like, there's no point to that.
You can't.
everyone has a bias.
Yeah. I was combining like 3 different words, but yeah, you can't just like just because they're biased because like it doesn't change anything. It's still a state.
Yes.
And by saying that they're biased, then also points that you have a bias and that your bias is against theirs.
Everyone has a bias, and most books, nonfiction books and fiction books, the author has a bias.
That's fine.
It's only in the case of Christianity that people say it can't be true, and it has largely to do with the fact that Jesus they don't want that. They don't want it.
I just think it's funny because like the Muslims claim like the same, or at least they should be, according to the Quran, and nobody gets mad when they do it.
Yeah, it might lead
Well, that's
them
a family
to be
problem.
more likely to be accurate because it's so important to them. They want to be more accurate. But then I think the question that you have to ask is they're converted. What caused them to be converted? And we'll be talking about that.
That's the next one.
And why would they make up the resurrection if it only brought them problems and death? Okay, 4. How would you refute the objection that the New Testament isn't reliable because converted people are not objective? And this is a similar question. Yeah.
So just because someone is not neutral doesn't mean they don't have the ability to maintain objectiveness.
Yeah, and the thing is that they can be emotionally invested and unbiased. It might make them more likely to tell the truth because it might make them even more wanting to be more truthful because it's important to them, and it's important to them for other people to understand who Jesus is as well. So yeah.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
I was saying like, or you were saying if they're biased doesn't mean that they can't give an like accurate account. But how could you tell if somebody's account was biased or not? Just you have to say bias. Like if I'm reading the Bible, to me it's not biased because that's what I also believe. But if you're someone who doesn't think what they think, and you're reading the Bible, you're gonna assume that's biased. So how could you be objective to tell whether or not something is biased?
Yeah, well, we're not done with our argument yet. We're going to talk about how to. But this is part of the way we're telling the truth. Things like you don't make up a lie to get. So that makes it more likely to be true. Because you've got all of them. So,
Except for John.
no, well, he died in exile. He was horrifically persecuted. But yes, he died a natural death. I don't know how he did that.
He was seriously scarred. Like unrecognizable.
I mean, even prior. So people can be both invested emotionally and unbiased, and most writers believe what they are writing, especially those who are writing nonfiction. And then passion may cause a writer to be more careful to be accurate because there are critics. And by the way, ironically, the critics claiming this are also biased, right? So they're saying it's not true, but they are also biased. And probably haven't looked into it, they just don't want it. So this is what you're going to do, and it's not until Wednesday, and you have the whole hour to work on it. Yeah, so you're going to read pages 235 to 249. You're going to engage 5 through 7, and that's due on Wednesday. And then tomorrow you have the whole hour